Today we're looking at the top 10 best-selling albums of all time. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome to our top 10 countdown that will brighten your minds with the beats of the best-selling albums offered across the globe. Music comes and goes in a cycle, my friends. It sets the tone for life and makes memories. But it's in fact the albums listed here today that made the biggest history. We all have our favorite music, but can you name an album that almost everyone you know knows about? It's a tough question. It's not that these artists aren't the most famous, but combine them with a particular album and you've got magic. These are the top 10 best-selling albums to date as of 2018. We're not sure what's going to happen this year yet. These particular albums individually have garnered more support worldwide than even Joshua Tree or Blonde on Blonde. They are simply exceptional in their following and ability to find buyers. Whatever the critical element is, people eat them up. They range in decades from the 1970s to the 1990s, and it remains to be seen if others will outsell them. For now, they are primo, top of the list for the sales. You may know them by heart or you may only know a few songs, but sit down and listen for a while, and you might find yourself singing along to every lyric, while they have made their way into the hearts and minds and wallets of people worldwide. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Alux. So let's get to it, shall we? Here are the top 10 best-selling albums worldwide. Number 10. Millennium featuring the Backstreet Boys, 1999. 40 million pieces sold. Released, as the name implies, near the turn of the millennium, this album sold almost 500,000 copies on its first day of release in the US. It simply was a hit. It was produced by Max Martin and Christian London, according to Rankings.com, and other sources list several other producers as well. The album was recorded with Jive Records and tops sales as the album to have the most shipments for 1 year in 1999 at 11 million. It was nominated for 5 Grammy Awards and has 4 top 40 hits included on it. Number 9. Saturday Night Fever soundtrack featuring the Bee Gees and various artists, 1977. 40 million pieces sold. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack is just that, a movie soundtrack from the film starring John Travolta. It was released in 1997 at the height of the disco era, and the music reflects the dance scene of the time. The album was produced by Arif Mardin according to one source and Bill Oakes by another. The central artists on the soundtrack are the Bee Gees, the Gibbs Brothers. Originally, Travolta's dancing scenes were choreographed to Stevie Wonder and Boz Scaggs music. In the US, the album was awarded a 16-time platinum status, with at least 16 million albums shipped. The soundtrack stayed on the Billboard album charts for 120 weeks in the United States, and it remained for 18 consecutive weeks at number 1 in the UK. It wasn't just about disco, it was disco. Number 8. Rumors featuring Fleetwood Mac, 1977. 40 million pieces sold. Released in 1977, Rumors is also a reflection of 1970s culture, but from a scene mostly off the dance floor. It's rumored the album was titled following the band members' own rumors when regarding one another. According to 2 sources, Ken Calais and Richard Deschutes produced the album, with one source additionally listing the band contributing to production. It's the 11th studio album by the band and was released on Warner Brothers Records. 4 of the songs on the album reached the US Billboard Top 10, including Go Your Own Way. Rumors captured the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 1978 and is the band's most successful album. Number 7. The Bodyguard soundtrack featuring Whitney Houston and various artists, 1992. 42 million pieces sold. The soundtrack to the Bodyguard movie was released in 1992 on Arista Records, following the release of the movie. The film starred Whitney Houston, who sang several of the songs on the soundtrack, and Kevin Costner. Two sources list Whitney Houston and Clive Davis as the producers of the album. It's divided into 2 compact discs, with songs sung by Whitney Houston on the first disc and songs by various other artists on the second. The album later won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year and was certified 18 times platinum in the US for sales of over 18 million. Houston included on the album I'm Your Baby Tonight, and the second disc includes more expected film scores, including instrumentals by Kenny G. The soundtrack garnered several notable spots on the Billboard charts, including the Billboard Top 200 chart and the Billboard Top's R&B Hip-Hop Album chart. Number 6. Dirty Dancing soundtrack featuring various artists, 1987. Released in 1987 after the release of the film starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, the Dirty Dancing soundtrack is the top-selling soundtrack on this list. It was released on RCA Records, and unlike The Bodyguard, Dirty Dancing does not have a primary artist, but is instead a compilation. This soundtrack, too, is tied heavily to a dance trend, as the name implies. It was produced by Jimmy Lenner. The songs range from 1956 to 1987 and include the Righteous Brothers' Unchained Melody. As far as Billboard rankings go, the album spent 18 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard album chart in the US. There are 2 succeeding albums, More Dirty Dancing in 1988 and The Ultimate Dirty Dancing in 2003, on which the songs from the movie are recorded in the same order as the movie. And while we're mixing up music and movies, check out some things you didn't know about entertainment in our video, The 15 Things You Didn't Know About the Entertainment Industry, by clicking in the top right corner. Number 5. Their Greatest Hits, 1971 to 1975, featuring the Eagles, 1976, 42 million pieces sold. Released in 1976, and another glimpse into the 1970s, this Greatest Hits album was a compilation of the songs from the Eagles' first 4 albums, many of which spent time on the Billboard charts. This album was signed on Asylum Records and has a very low production cost. By one source, Glyn Johns and Bill Szymczyk were the producers on this compilation. It was rumored the band opposed this Greatest Hits album for artistic reasons. The artwork on the cover of the album is well known and was created by the artist Boyd Elder, entitled El Chingadero. Some have compared the background in appearance to cocaine, but the actual material is painted silver mylar. Each of the songs on the album, with the exception of Tequila Sunrise, achieved top 40 rankings with Billboard. Number 4. Bat Out of Hell featuring Meat Loaf, 1977, 43 million pieces sold. Released in 1977, this is our second last album from the 1970s, a big decade for music. This album was released on Cleveland International Epic Records and was produced by Todd Rundgren, according to 2 separate sources. The album is reportedly inspired by several musical greats, among them Richard Wagner and Bruce Springsteen. Bat Out of Hell spent 485 weeks on the UK charts and has received multiple platinum status in the US. There's even been a musical on the album which was staged internationally, with current plans to continue staging it. And separate from sales, Rolling Stone magazine ranked the album 343rd among its top 500 albums. It's regarded as a significant musical contribution. A strong influence on the album was Jim Steinman, who worked together with Meat Loaf to have the album produced. What's interesting, though, is there are some ties to a musical based on the story of Peter Pan. Number 3. Dark Side of the Moon featuring Pink Floyd, 1973, 43 million pieces sold. Released in 1973 and the last entry from the 1970s, this album, Pink Floyd's 8th, debuted on Harvest Records. The band itself produced the album and does not accredit production to a third-party producer. This is one of the rarities among the list, of which the band performed a pre-release of the album before its official release. It has appeared as of 2015 900 weeks on the charts as an album. Singles such as Money and Us and Them have hit the charts as singles. Some lyrics on the album were, in part, inspired by the troubles of Syd Barrett, a former band member. Roger Waters is quoted as saying that he wishes to discuss things to make people mad. Dark Side of the Moon is certified as 15 times platinum in the US. Number 2. Back in Black featuring AC/DC, 1980. 49 million pieces sold. Here we are at the cusp of the 1980s. Released in the year 1980, Back in Black was produced on Albert Atlantic Records by Robert John "Mutt" Lang, according to two sources. It is the 7th studio album by the Australian rock band. On it, Brian Johnson sings lead vocals. He was recorded after the death of Bon Scott, the previous vocalist. The cover, a solid black surface, was a dedication of mourning to the deceased singer Scott. The album debuted at number 1 on the British charts and number 4 on Billboard charts, unusual for a heavy metal band. Some of the lyrics were inspired by the tropical weather in the Bahamas, where the album was recorded. Back in Black is certified 22 times platinum in the US, having sold 22 million copies domestically. Number 1. Thriller, featuring Michael Jackson, 1982. 110 million pieces sold. Thriller was released in 1982, also on the cusp of the 80s. Its recording labels were Epic in the US and CBS internationally at the time of its release. The producers on Thriller were Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, so Jackson had some discretion over choice of songs and quality of music. It garnered 8 Grammy Awards, a record-breaking number, and had 7 singles, which were number 1 on the Billboard charts. Among them were Billie Jean, Beat It, and Wanna Be Startin' Something. It was the dawn of the era of the music video and MTV, and several of the singles from the album had accompanying videos at the time. According to the 2003 issue, Rolling Stone listed the album as number 20 of the 500 greatest albums of all time. What's more, Thriller has been certified as 30 times platinum in the US after selling 33 million copies. And there you have it, Aluxers, the top 10 best-selling albums in the world. And now a question for you. If you were a musician, which one of these producers would you work with and why? Let us know in the comments. And of course, for sticking with us all the way to the end, here's your bonus. Did you know the Grammys originated with the Hollywood Walk of Fame project in the 1950s? The other artists already had established awards like the Oscars, and there was no award for musicians. And so came about the Grammys, which are named after the gramophone and awarded to musical talent. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to Alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.